Good afternoon, Comms Club. Right, March Matters video 2. Now, today's video is all about one of the foundational principles that I use to shape all of my communication, because I think sometimes we need a bit of a guiding light, a bit of a reminder of where we actually should communicate from. Yesterday's video is all about the power of communication and the potential ripples that it has when we choose to communicate in any capacity. And today's video is all about a foundational principle that I cannot recommend highly enough. Now, the principle that I use, and if you've ever worked with me, watched any of my content, been on a course that I've run, part of a workshopping group, you'll know that above all, I promote communicating from a place where you believe that clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Now, I was first introduced to this concept in Brené Brown's book, Dare to Lead. And she talks about clarity of communication being the kindest thing that you can do when you are in conversation or building rapport with people, because it stops ambiguity, misinformation, and unwanted or unnecessary reactions. Now, if you just think about that for a moment, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. In today's society, you see it everywhere. If you can be anything, be kind, or just be kind. Well, actually, you can apply that to the way in which you communicate, because there is so much happening in the average life of somebody these days, be them a child, a teenager, young adult, or a fully fledged grown-up, that your piece of communication with them, regardless of its intention or its background, it can either be the thing that makes their day or the thing that breaks their day. And sometimes we just don't maximize the opportunity to make sure that we are as kind as possible in our communication. Now, that does not mean we only say nice things, because I am an advocate of speaking your truth and actually articulating your true feelings, your true beliefs, and your true desires. And sometimes communicating those three things, you can have to deliver some bad news. You can have to have an awkward scenario. You have to have a difficult conversation. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's not about only saying nice things. Although that wouldn't make for such a bad second principle, would it? But clarity isn't weakness, and clarity isn't just nice things. Being clear doesn't mean that you're rude. It doesn't mean that you're bullshit. It doesn't mean that you're direct to the point where you can get away with hurting people's feelings. Clear means that you are removing ambiguity, miscommunication, and doubt when you have a conversation with someone. So if you think about a conspiracy theory for a moment. Now, a conspiracy theory is simply pieces of truth or known information or fact with gaps in between them. And what we do when we are told certain pieces of information, but nobody links up those pieces of information to tell us a clear story, what we do is we fill in the gaps for ourselves. So we fill in the explanations between those pieces of truth or fact. And often we tell ourselves and create a story that is not true, wasn't ever true. And when you think about the fact that our brains are wired to protect us, they are wired to prevent us from confrontation, threat of life, pain, hurt. So often when there is some communication that we've received, but not a whole story, our brain protects us by telling us a story that prevents us from acting on a piece of information, being vulnerable, being in danger. When you are clear in the way that you communicate, you fill in all the gaps between those pieces of fact and information. And sometimes you're telling somebody something they don't want to hear. But actually, the gift of doing it in a clear way is at least they know the truth. At least they've got the whole picture, and at least they are in no doubt as to what you meant and what you said at the end of that conversation, which allows them to pick the most appropriate and right reaction and action to take at the end of that conversation. So if a conversation matters to you, then being clear should be a valuable tool that you can use. So how do you make sure then that your communication is clear and you are using the foundational North Star of comms, which is clear is kind, unclear is unkind? How can you use it? If you are preparing for a conversation that matters, then there's two things that will help the clarity of what you say. One, preparing well, and secondly, thinking about how you want somebody to feel when you have this conversation. So preparing well, that sounds a bit odd when you're thinking about being really clear. Well, here's the newsflash. Quite often, more often than I would like to believe is true, people have not thought through what it is they actually want to say. Now, that might be hard to believe, but have you ever started a conversation and someone said, yeah, I hear you, but what is it you actually want? Yeah, what is it you're trying to say? And people say, oh, I don't really know. I just wanted you to hear what I had to say. And you think, well, that's great. But if you want anything to happen as a result of sharing it, you need to have thought through what are you actually saying and what do you want? And my background is in HR. And the number of times people would come in with a complaint or a potential grievance, and they would tell me all about their situation, all about the thing that had been done to them or the way they feel. And I would inevitably, to gain clarity, I would say to them, okay, I hear you. So what do you want to happen now? And so often they would say, well, I don't really know. What do you think? And I'd say, well, it's not up to me to decide what I want to happen now. I'm trying to work out what you want to happen. And I would say to them, what does good look like? What does success look like? And when you're about to have an important conversation, I would ask you to prepare in the same way. What do you actually want? What's the point of sharing the piece of information you're about to share? Do you want, I broke my husband's sunglasses recently, his cycling sunglasses, because apparently I'm very heavy-handed, which I would like to argue is not true, but it properly is true. Anyway, I snapped the little leg, the little screw that attaches the leg to his, or the arm to his sunglasses. And he said to me, I said, I'm going to get in touch with the company and let them know that this has happened. And he said, what do you want, to get a new screw? And I was like, well, I don't actually think the screw should have broken that easy. I'm going to ask them for a refund. And he was like, they won't give you a refund. I've had them since December. And actually, it's your heavy-handedness that broke it. It's not really a fault. And I said to him, yeah, well, let's see if that's how they feel. So in my communication with the sunglass manufacturer, I just told the honest truth. I thought about it. I prepared well. And I said, look, this is the situation. I bought these in December. I was trying to change the lens, and actually I've snapped the screw. I don't think it should really have happened as easily as it did. I'm not particularly butch, but I'm wondering if you could organise a refund for me or a replacement pair. And my husband said, honestly, you've got more front than whatever. He said, they're not going to give you a refund. And I said to him, well, fine, but if I'm not clear about what I'm asking, how can they make a decision? I'm not going to scoot around about back and forth, or what is it that you actually want? Or would you like a replacement screw? Or, are you asking for your money back? I said, be clear. And as a result of that, the man came back and he said, oh, I'm not sure that it's not something we really do. It's not a manufacturing fault. Are you sure that the screw is snapped? I thought, ridiculous question, number one. So I went back to him and said, look, it is. I've asked my husband to check it. High heels. I said, it totally is my fault. I should have listened to him when he said, be gentle with them. Is there anything you can do? I'm really looking for a replacement. He loves these glasses. And lo and behold, they came straight back and said, well, we wouldn't normally do it, but we'll honour it as a gesture of goodwill. We've got a replacement pair in the post to you. And my husband said to me, honestly, he said, you get away with murder. And I'm like, I didn't say to them, I think you owe me a new pair of glasses. This is ridiculous. This is a fault. It's poor quality. I just said to them, this is the truth of the situation. This is how I feel. This is what good looks like for me. Can you help? When you are clear, because you've thought through what you want to say and how you want people to feel at the end of it, you are likely to have more successful communication than when you just start talking without a plan. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind. In preparing for a conversation, think about what it is you want to say and think about what outcome you want and how you want someone to feel. In the delivery of that conversation, there are two things that I would encourage you to do if you want to make sure that when you are speaking, you are as clear as possible, therefore as kind as possible. The first is to slow your speech down. Not quite to that pace, as just demonstrated by me, but I would suggest you consider slowing your speech down. Because quite often when we are in an emotive situation, we're talking about something that we might find uncomfortable, or we worry about the other person feeling uncomfortable about or unhappy with. We want to get through that conversation as quickly as possible. We want it to end. And so what happens? We speed up our voice. The speed of our voice speeds up and we just want to get out of there. Now, the problem with that is, yes, the conversation will end quicker, but the chances are you will have lost the person you're speaking to along the way. Because when you receive information for the first time, you're trying to do four things with it. You're trying to hear the words, you're trying to process them, to understand them, you're trying to work out how you feel about them, and then you are responding to them. If you speak very quickly when you're having a difficult or challenging conversation or delivering bad news in some way, you will probably allow the person you're speaking to get no further than hearing the words and starting to process them, to understand them. You're unlikely to give them the time to reflect on what that means to them and react. And therefore you limit the potential success of your communication with them, because they haven't got the ability or enough information and time to really work out how to respond. So when you're having a conversation, you want it to be clear. Slow your speech down. Be respectful. Because if it's important to you, you've probably, you might have even steeled yourself up to this moment. You've probably thought about it in advance. It's not a new topic for you. 9 times out of 10, it's new information to the person you're sharing it with. So they need to feel the respect that they deserve in you giving them time to process it and react to it. So speak slowly. The second thing you can do to make sure that your communication is clear, therefore kind, is to ask during the conversation for clarity that they understood you. So you can say to them, so just check in. You're definitely okay with picking the kids up at 3, because I definitely can't get there in time. Yep, no problem. Or, do you understand where I'm coming from? Or, does that make sense to you? Or have you got any questions about that? Ask questions that allow you to clarify that they have understood what you're asking. Because sometimes people feel stupid. Sometimes people feel silly, like they should understand everything the first time. And they don't want to say, oh, I'm not sure, because it makes them look foolish, or you doubt their ability in a certain area. But if you give them the opportunity to check their understanding, they'll take it. And certainly if you are having conversations with people you line manage, don't assume that they understood everything that you just said. Check their understanding. So are you okay? Do you think that definitely you could make Tuesday's deadline to give me X, Y, and Z? And if they say, oh, I don't know, I thought you meant the following week. Or, if you say to them, is everything in there clear? Is there any questions? Because, ask me anything you want to ask about how we're going to deliver that. And someone will say, well, there's just one thing. Do you mean like the whole team need to get involved? Or is that the next phase? Whatever it is, ask for them to clarify they understood you. And I suppose the other thing that you can do is when someone is talking to you, so you've not initiated this conversation, you're on the receiving end of a conversation, and someone isn't being very clear, and therefore they're not extending you the kindness that you know you'd benefit from. They're not telling you all of those stories. They're creating a bit of a conspiracy theory for you. Then don't be afraid to gain clarity for yourself. Ask as many questions as you can. They might be open questions, they might be closed questions, but try and drill the questions down until you are crystal clear what it is they're saying. So phrases like, so what is it if someone is telling you something? You say, okay, so what is it exactly that you want to happen? Or you could say to someone, so am I right in thinking you're actually, saying that our relationship ought to end now? Or you could say to somebody, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. What is it that you want me to know exactly? Or you can, simply say to somebody, so am I right in thinking that you feel we should take a break and consider whether our relationship is going to exist in the future or not? Am I right to think that? Are you saying, what exactly is it that you want me to know? Those are all great questions that someone else will answer so that you are on the receiving end of Clear is Kind. Because the kindest thing you can do for yourself is make sure that you've got real clarity at the end of a conversation. And when you adopt the approach clear is kind, unclear is unkind, you will find that it does three things. It removes confusion. It helps people to manage their emotions, because even if you are delivering a bad news story, it gives people the ability to at least manage their emotional response the first opportunity they get, so that they don't go away and torture themselves thinking that you're trying to break up the relationship, and then you have a subsequent conversation a week later and you say to them, no, that wasn't what I was saying at all. Well, they've just wasted all of that emotion and all of that personal torment. So it removes ambiguity, it allows people to manage emotion, and because you are being clear, you get firsthand to see the natural reaction to that information as you read people's body language. If you're hinting around, and you're skirting around, dancing around the edges of something, you might not be able to read someone's reaction because they're not sure what they're reacting to. When you are really clear and you say to somebody, you ask them a direct question, and they understand it, they've processed it, and they respond to it in the moment, you will be able to use all of those non-verbal clues they'll be giving you. You'll be able to read their facial expressions, as well as hear and listen to the words that come back to you as a response. And that means you will get a much better response to the impact of your words on them. And that allows you to respond and give your next sentence to either clarify a point, reiterate a point, or actually clear up some confusion. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind is the foundational starting point for meaningful, authentic, honest, connection creating conversations. And there is absolutely no disadvantage to sharing a little bit more kindness in society today. So bear that in mind on top of yesterday's video all about the potential ripples and impacts of your choice of communication, and it might just find its way into your world as you speak to others. Be aware, because the impact and the connection that you're going to create will be significantly enhanced. I hope that this video has been clear, and I hope that it has been kind enough to give you the facts and allow you to respond and react accordingly. If not, comment below and I'll try and do a better job next time. Okay, I will see you back here in the page tomorrow for day 3 of my new year. Okay, bye for now.